This is Africa International Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AITV, where we give you an exclusive interview with the very legendary Jobarteh. She's been here in Sweden performing, doing her tour. She's been around the globe. Today she's in Stockholm in Fasching. She just finished performing, and we are very grateful that she's given us this opportunity to say a few words to her fans here in Sweden and elsewhere around the world. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sona, thank you for having us. We know it's been quite a tough journey to Sweden. You've been touring around, and today you just performed here in Fasching. How does it feel to be here in Stockholm? How was the reception?
It was a good show. I've heard a lot about Stockholm before, so it's nice to be here finally.
Would you consider coming back?
Yeah, of course.
Anytime soon?
Yeah, well, that's not down to me, but definitely I would love to come back, yeah.
Sona Jobarteh, what got you into the musical scene?
It was a family thing. I was lucky to be born into a musical family, so taking music was a natural journey for me.
And you talked about, was it your grandmother who, to whom you dedicated one of the songs? How did she influence you? Both your life and probably in music?
Well, actually, I mentioned that it was not at the time that I really appreciated those things. But later on in life, when I came to make the decisions I did, you start to look back in your life and look at the people who made that possible for you. And she was one of the people that always was pushing me to be interested in the kora and that tradition. Anytime I was around, you know, her husband, my grandfather was a master griot of the Gambia at the time. So, you know, the whole family was very musical, but she was always pushing me to be there whenever he was playing, and to be listening and learning and observing what was going on.
And being a female and playing music and doing it very well, especially with the kora and the vocal as well, how is it received back home in the Gambia? Elsewhere, from my knowledge of other parts of Africa, ladies who were singing were looked upon a little low. How does it function in the Gambia?
Well, women as singers is something, as griots born into the griot tradition as singers, is something that has always been well regarded, because you know, as a traditional role for a woman in the griot tradition would be to become a singer. So definitely, if you're interested in music and you're born into one of these families and you're female, that will be the road that you will start to take. So for me, obviously, deciding to go and start down the instrumental part, which is the male side of the tradition, is something that has been different from my family. But you know, the support back home, I can't say anything but good things about it. You know, the Gambia and the population has been so supportive since I decided to make it public that this is what I'm doing.
And you've been in the musical scene for quite a while now, and doing quite great. How do you handle the fame, the level at which you are now? It mustn't be easy.
I think it's more difficult back home, because the Gambia is such a small community, and it definitely transforms the way that you interact with people. You know, you to do normal things is not possible so much anymore, because everybody knows. So many people have seen you and know you and want to talk to you, which is a beautiful thing. But you know, sometimes you just want to go and do something very normal. So I appreciate also being places where nobody knows about African music, and I can, you know, just be myself. But at the same time, I think you know, as I always say to many people, when you are given the chance and you have the fortune to be regarded by people as somebody they want to listen to and somebody that they believe in some way, there's a huge responsibility, I think, in making sure that you bring the right messages to people. And in that way, I think it's definitely a duty that you must fulfill for people.
Do you think you've reached your apex, or there is still more that you want to give to the public out there?
I'm just starting.
You're just starting. That's good. Is there anything before that question? I've seen in other concerts that you perform, and you actually don't care so much about security. I see people fly on the stage and dance with you, and you're feeling so free. How do you handle that? I don't see that with other musicians.
This is something that's very special and important. I think specifically about the Gambia and the representation that is important for the country. It's, as I mentioned today, it's a very small country. It's the smallest country in the mainland, and so the Gambians feel so much pride and so much happiness in having that little chance to be able to celebrate something of their own culture, something that they're proud of, and a chance for the other people also to share in that. So for me, it's very important that they have that opportunity, and that I can give a window to allow people to be able to have and share that moment. And it's very special and it's very important. That's really the reason why I do what I do.
Are there any regrets being in the musical scene?
Not regrets. You learn lessons. I would say that. Always learn lessons, yes.
Any particular lesson that you've learned?
I think probably more so when it comes to the business side of it. It's challenging, and I see many other artists going through those challenges in the music business and the music industry, because it's very, it's an old industry, and it's tailored, I would say, not to necessarily be to the benefit of the artist on the long term. So it's a huge challenge to me to be able to maintain my independence within the music industry and make sure that I still have the control over my own music, and not to sign it away. Because I always say to people, I'm part of a legacy. This is not just about me. This is about, a history that has been so long and so old, and I see the history continuing to path its way into the future. So I'm I'm just one generation in this very long line. So I'm always thinking of the future. So it's not about what can I get now. This is about what can I make sure that I can do to make sure that the next generation for the next 700 years also can continue and do better.
Have you ever thought you might have done something else, something other than music?
Football.
Football?
Yeah.
Why? Because it pays a lot?
No, that was my passion. That was definitely my childhood passion. Football. Much more than music, yeah. Much more.
Sona Jobarteh, you're doing quite an excellent job back in the Gambia. You've received from the Gambian culture, and you're giving back a lot. Can you tell us a little about the academy that you've started in the Gambia?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the academy is called the Gambia Academy. It's a academy which centers around culture and music and history, but it's also an academy which supplies and provides mainstream education to children under the age of 18, between 8 up to 18. But this is, for me, a pilot project. This is an example and a demonstration to show how important it is for us to reform our education systems from the inside out. You hear a lot of governments talking about building new schools, which is a great thing, but I don't find the attention to what we're actually putting within those schools. To have an amazing school building and still be teaching the same lessons that have been, for me, giving the wrong mentality to people for decades doesn't solve our problem. So this is something that I want to highlight and bring attention to, and importance to making sure that we do work very hard on reforming the education systems from the inside out.
And being a revolutionary in that sense, do you get any sort of obstacles from the government institutions in place?
I would say it's not necessarily obstacles, but at the same time, it's not movement. And I would say that a lot of governments are geared very much towards their own term, which is years. And for me, I'm geared towards decades and generations. And there's not many governments that I see who are dedicated to that long-term picture. They're very much thinking about what they can accomplish within the short time frame that they have to prove what they can do within that time. And this is something which I feel, again, is a failure in some ways, because it does take sometimes a generation to make that crucial difference that is sustainable, and not something which is just mended for now and then broken again once the next person comes into power. So this is something for me, I'm always talking about the long-term ambition.
Where do you get support to run the institution? From what I recollect, as you're performing, you said school fees are free and everything, food free for the kids who attend the academy. Where do you get your financial support to do this?
Up to very recently, it's all been off the back of my own personal earnings, and the merchandise that I sell, my CDs that I sell. This is what the funds that I use exclusive for the support of these children, which is why I've had to keep it limited down to only 23 students. But the expansion of the academy will be due to the fact that more people will start to come forward and support. There's a lot of people who would love to support this initiative, but having myself at the center of this academy for this time since I set it up has limited it in some ways because as you see, I'm touring most of the time. So this does allow very little time for me to work on putting the brand out there, letting people know about it, getting fundraising appeals and all this stuff. This is a real job that somebody has to do. And I'm lucky now that the team is starting to build. I have an amazing team in the US now, and I have more team members from different parts of the world in Germany, in Belgium, and so on, who are now starting to come forward and actually formulate these parts of the structure that can actually help to bring funds on the long term.
Thank you for the great humanitarian work, Sona Jobarteh. Thank you also for the great music that you let us enjoy. One last question. You have a family, 2 kids. How does it work? How does it function? I mean, merging family life and touring the world.
It's not easy, because a lot of people, especially women, it can be, once you have kids, that's like, it's it, now my life is, close, bed, eat, sleep, and of course the early, year or so of a child's life, it'd have to be like that. But for me, my children are my life. And, for me also, the best thing that I can give them is an experience of life. This is a life that they will not learn in school. This is a life they will learn whilst being with me. And I always believe the most important thing for my children is to be with them.
Any special man out there?
Second?
Any special man out there?
Man. Oh, yes, but I'm a private person, definitely, yeah.
Thank you, Sona Jobarteh. One last question. I keep saying last question, the very last now. How do you do to maintain this shape?
I chocolate, cakes, and sweets.
And you stay this good?
That's it. Joke. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Sona Jobarteh. The very fact that you gave us this interview shows your simplicity and your kindness. Thank you very much. Any last word you want to say to the public out there?
Big words of Sweden love on the stage, but it's been great being here. I honestly hope that I will get a chance to come back again sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much, Sona Jobarteh. Bye-bye.
We're gonna send this all the way from Stockholm to Gambia together, okay? Gambia, Lema. You ready? Gambia, Lema. 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 Gambia,
Gambia,